Jean Donaldson is a world-renowned dog trainer, author, and educator to thousands of dog trainers through her highly acclaimed Academy for Dog Trainers course. She's always insightful, and everything she says is backed up by legitimate science. Yet, she speaks in a common, everyday language that any dog guardian would be best served listening to and taking her sage advice. She's a mentor of mine, and it was an honor and a pleasure to have spoken with Jean Donaldson for this episode of 8 Limbs. Welcome today to 8 Limbs. We are speaking with the legendary and fabulous dog trainer, behaviorist, author, educator of dog trainers, Miss Jean Donaldson. Welcome to 8 Limbs.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here, Drayton.
Thanks. I appreciate it. So let's jump right in. One of the things that I think you'd be really good at detailing is, because you've been involved with dogs for so long and educating dog trainers for many years, what's the single most important aspect that people should know about dogs?
I would say that you have to motivate them. That there's just no way around that. There's no magic. There's no, cult of personality. You've got basically the choice of the carrot or the stick. One of my trainers, she actually has a company in Wisconsin around Prairie. Her slogan for her business, it's called Upward Hound, is all carrot, no stick, no kidding. And I think that says it all, that you've got the choice of the carrot or the stick. We have proven it can all be done with carrot. And I mean all, not just the sort of lightweight stuff, but all the stuff. But people have got to actually use the carrot. And the sooner that people get their head around the fact that their dog is not just going to do it to make them happy, the dog is not just going to do it because they've got a forceful personality or they're a pack leader. They're going to have to motivate the dog. They then have that fork in the road of choosing a carrot or a stick, and we are going to vote carrot.
And you bring up a great point about the no magic and and motivation. I often tell my clients and anybody who wants to know that food is money. And, you can always dictate the value of that. And there's also other rewards that might, be even more valuable. As we both know, those life rewards, getting that scent or getting to get through that door, etc., can be in many cases just as valuable as food.
Can be, yeah. Use what works. If something doesn't work, move on to something that does work. Attempting to motivate any animal, including us, with something that they don't want is just plain dumb. I mean, it's inefficient. It doesn't work. And as a professional, you are, sacredly obligated to get the job done. And I would point out that food is actually the ultimate life reward.
Isn't it, though? Right. Without it, we all perish.
Mm-hmm.
And I often tell clients, that if somebody's selling you a bill of goods about you can't train dogs with food, I remind them that when puppies are nursing and they bite that nipple too hard, mom adjusts and the milk stops flowing for a second or two or more, and dogs learn right away, hey, behavior equals food acquisition. So it's one of the first things they learn. So, I mean, I usually try to get, as deep and heavy to convince people that they don't need that stick, literally or figuratively. Thanks for reinforcing that. Now, you've been a champion of positive training for a long time, and we're making substantial changes in culture, I feel, but where are we still clashing with the misinfo?
We really are. But you know what? Although, the dog whisperer has been renewed and it's still legal, at least in this country, to use all manner of force on dogs, I would say, I've been in this business a long time, and for the first time, literally in the last year or two, I would say I see the writing on the wall. There's a number of sort of threads that are coming together. One is research. You would think that, the research, although it's sort of proving what you and I know, which is that you can get the job done completely all carrot, no stick, favorable side effects as opposed to terrible side effects. The research has been unequivocally supporting this. That you would think that, research being what it is, that, there'd be a little bit murkier and maybe eventually sort of a trend would emerge that positive reinforcement is better and safer, et cetera, and that there are terrible detrimental side effects to using force. But the research has been coming down in droves, and it's been absolutely unequivocal, and it's being well disseminated, and that's something which is new. We didn't used to have that piece in our arsenal. There's also plenty of precedent. So if you go into the field, out of the laboratory into the field, in a variety of jurisdictions, everything from entire countries like Iceland to Places like Toronto just passed an ordinance citywide. There are also various kinds of jurisdictions which have banned force tools, and there has not been an attendant. Oh my God! Now all the dogs are going crazy, and now dog trainers can't get the job done. That hasn't happened. So any force trainers who are saying that you've got to do this, that's been also demonstrated in the field that no, you don't, and that's going to make it difficult for them to argue their case. There's also been all those viral videos, that dog in the movie, basically people can spot it when they see it. They know it when they see it, even though the narration on shows like the dog Whisperer makes them sort of suspend their disbelief. When people see dogs being abused by trainers or abused on movie sets, they do it, and there's an outcry. And so the viral video stuff, I think there's going to be more and more sort of, hopefully some hidden camera stuff exposing what these people do. There's also been some talk of licensure in a couple of states. We've got even the American Animal Hospital Association coming down in 2015 with behavior guidelines so that veterinarians are required, in order to be AHA approved, they have to refer strictly to force-free trainers. They've got to, do things a certain way in their practices and so on. But this is now something which is not just reaching veterinarians, it's being mandated. So they're catching up to American Veterinary Society and Animal Behavior, which has taken a strong stance for years. And then there's also the advent of fear-free, where sort of veterinary hospitals saying, boy, we should get our job done. And if you think about it, their job is to do medical procedures which are often necessary and urgent, etc., on dogs. And they're saying that, boy, we need to do our job without fear. Doesn't it kind of then extrapolate over to us? We're one sort of changing behavior that we should at least up our game to the point where we're doing it because we're doing far less invasive things. And so I think all those things mean that, it's going to happen. But here's the thing is, just as I'm aware of this and you're aware of the writing on the wall, so are the force people. And imagine what it must be like to have your cherished way of doing things being threatened. So somebody said, okay, you can no longer, train with tug toys or train with food. I mean, wouldn't you fight back? I mean, they're going to fight for their lives. And so they are going to go down, but I think we need to be ready ourselves. They're going to go down swinging. They're not going to go down readily. They really want to continue to do this. I feel kind of bad for how history is going to look back on, imagine the last person in the country to cross over because they've been mandated by law, and been outed on video and so on, that poor person is not going to be looked on favorably by history. But they don't think they're on the wrong side of the issue. They think they're on the right side of the issue. And so we need to be prepared for plenty of pushback.
Yeah, I definitely agree there'll be pushback. And while I share your optimism without a doubt, and you brought up some really great things, especially about the vets for that one particular school being mandated to, understand behavior. That's great news. My thing with the pain trainers, as I call them, is they'll probably use the financial argument, and then they'll have the backing of all the companies who make prong collars and shock collars and electronic fencing. So, when it comes to politicians, I've had, and I don't know if you've had experience with politicians, and I'm not sort of broad stroking here, but it becomes really sketchy when you get them involved because they want everyone to be happy. So they may look, as we know, we see in other aspects of politics where they look the other way on science or they look the other way on the way culture is evolving. So, fortunately, I think you're right. I think in the end, we're going to have enough of the people with lots of letters after their name saying, nope, can't do this. And there'll be a lot of, stories of dogs who've been harmed in the process. So are there any stumbling blocks at the moment? Do we see anything, major getting the proper information out? Because it sounds to me like, the road is being cleared, but do you notice anything that is occurring that we may not know about that's stumbling towards that?
I think that what you just said just, arrested me in my tracks, which is, the financial interests of companies. Now maybe, I'm not well enough versed to know what the solution is. It could be that, if we can reach those companies and say, that technology that you've got, let's use it towards, more crafty and better designed, kinds of positive reinforcement tools and enrichment tools. In other words, they need to be able to make a living. And I think that politicians are going to be very sensitive to financial interests, as history has taught us that. And the other thing I think that is a stumbling block is we're in sort of this environment. I mean, we have been for a while, but it's really intensified lately, this kind of fact-free world where you get to make up, your opinion gets to be a fact. It is. And also our side is a little bit splintered. So we don't have, it's a bit like herding cats. There's still a fair amount of infighting among positive reinforcement trainers, which is unfortunate. And I think there's also some competence challenges, which is hurting our side. So, yeah, I mean, there definitely are big stumbling blocks. But we have to keep fighting the fight, don't we?
We do. And you bring up something that we can go left here a little bit before we, go through my questions. But, my theory, I shouldn't say my theory, but I should say, my opinion is this. If you're a force-free trainer, you're on the team. Now, you may not be a starter. You may not be LeBron James or Steph Curry, but you're on the team, And that's how I always approach whenever somebody contacts me and they're a positive trainer and they want advice or help or insights. If I know for sure that they're making an honest go, then I will help them because I feel obligated to help someone on the team. If somebody's not on the team and they're using prong and choke, I just... good luck. We don't have, because if we're going to debate, we might as well be debating, which protocol in ABA is appropriate for something rather than your opinion on whether or not to use a choke chain.
Yeah, I think arguments on social media are not the way to get the job done.
Right, definitely not. I stay off of social media as much as possible and keep things to happy birthday and send people, well wishes. But, yeah, as far as infighting with positive dog trainers, I think that it's a detriment. I think a lot of it's ego and, just give it up, people. Let's we can get along. And I mean, I'm a big fan of if somebody's doing something and they're getting results in a way that I wouldn't, but they're using positive reinforcement and ABA, go for it. I can learn from that too. Nobody has to do everything the same way. There's a lot of ways to get the job done. So yeah, we should all get along. Speaking of getting along in dog trainers, the original Academy for Dog Trainers was taught as a 6-week course at the San Francisco SPCA, and the new version's a 2-year distance course. What are the benefits and the challenges of educating students in both of those versions, both with the 6-week course and with the 2-year course?
That's a great question. I would say one of the main pluses is the video coaching, which allows us to say, look, at 2:57, you did X, Y, Z, and at 3:43, you did da-da-da, and let people sort of look back on in very granular detail at their technique, and then we can coach them literally over months and years to hone their technique. I remember very well you in Academy, and you were born, the way you are, which is you're just very technically able. You're mechanically very, very good, among the best. But not everybody is born that way, and so because we are not sent, sort of flotillas of Drayton Michaelses, we've got to develop the talent that we get. And so having more time to spin it out and, marinate people and do reps and get them to do it on multiple dogs and the same behavior and so on has allowed us that developmental time. And it allow us to sort of have a standard for practica that every student is going to have to achieve. And that goes for also the knowledge and the material and applications and so on. I would say one of the big minuses is when you're live, especially you remember how intense it is. In 6 weeks, you're trying to pack a lot in. Very intense. There's a lot of bonding, a lot of face time. And I think dog training can be, especially before the broad internet age, can be sort of a lonely profession where there's you and then in your, you've got your immediate circle, but sometimes the other people in your jurisdiction may be competitors. They may not be, simpatico, etc. And so, I think, building community has been a challenge. We've been trying to mitigate that by having a lot of our resources put into student support in the form of really good discussion communities on a variety of topics and being really present there and mentoring people to try and mitigate that. Okay, so it's distance, and so you're on your computer, and I know that there's a fair amount of cyber bonding and stuff, but it's not quite the same as being face-to-face. Now, we occasionally do live things, and we try to, and people end up getting together, but we're very geographically, dispersed, and so that is difficult. And so the cyber community is strong, but it would be nice to have more sort of face time with people.
Yeah, I think that there's advantages to both, but I think overall, with now that I have been in the profession for as long as I have and been, exposed to what it's like to be a dog trainer, I think the 2-year program is better in terms of just getting everything together as a dog trainer. But I don't know, if I would have been able to do it while I went to work and like being suspended from my life for 6 weeks and doing nothing but focusing on dog training. For me personally, that's probably the only way I could have really gotten it done, because I would have been too distracted. But I'm sorry, you were going to say?
Yeah, and what we do is not easy. It's not. I mean, somebody floated that one of the impediments to licensure is going to be that it's a barrier to employment. In other words, people are going to have to get educated, and they're going to have to get into the minimal requirements. They're going to have to get a license. That's going to stop any old Joe from being a dog trainer, which is the point.
Exactly.
And therefore, this is not. We're not talking about taking the trash by the side of the road. I mean, not that is not without risk and so on. I don't want to denigrate any occupation, but what we do is complex. I mean, we're counseling people with families, small children, and predators in their homes.
Yeah.
We're trying to keep families together on various issues. We're trying to save dogs' lives, understanding behavior analysis, counseling, teaching, motivating clients, structuring things. This is complex work, and to suggest that the goal should not be protection of consumers, so that competent people are doing this work, but that we should make it so that anybody can be a dog trainer, so that they can kind of do it half-assed and make a living is exactly the argument.
Yeah, and I think that, look, if we were at a cocktail party and we told people we were dog trainers, a lot of people would snicker. And whenever I've gotten that response, I look at somebody and say, can any of your clients land 25 bites in 4 seconds? And that's when they just sort of stop and look at you, and I go, well, I'm not saying that every dog is dangerous, but what I'm saying is that when I go to work some days, my main goal is don't get bit. And don't set this family up to fail. One of the things that you taught us at the academy was keep the dog in the house if you can. Like, that's kind of the main goal. You're not turning people into dog trainers. They're going to forget some of the knowledge-based stuff, but that's where the really competent, legit dog trainers do go in with plans and contingencies. And, as you say, it's difficult. You have to do a lot of things.
Triage is not easy. If we were in training to be physicians, we would have a fair amount of resources and effort directed at triage, how to make good priority decisions and table things and get things done, in a timely and efficient manner. And that skill alone is something that is complex and requires a fair amount of brain power. I do want to say that part of the reason that some people roll their eyes at dog trainers is it has to be laid at the foot of our profession, that for decades we have not gotten our act together. We've been basically abusing the public trust. We have not, had standards of care, etc. And so I think we need to, keep looking in the mirror and saying we've got to do better. And I think those of us who have strived to do it right, we need to apologize on behalf of our profession and then keep pushing for higher standards, so that there is going to come a day when both, professions such as veterinarians and the general public start to see us as real professionals, which is what we are.
Yeah, and I mean, I always say to someone who's like, well, dog trainers, somebody on the fence of hiring me, I say, I agree with you 100%. I don't necessarily trust dog trainers either. And I say, that's, not a slight on the profession, but it's a real easy thing to sort of half-ass. And if you are half-assing it and the majority of your clients are a bunch of sit-stays and recalls and, you're using food, okay, but in order to do this job correctly, I feel you need to have everything together, including your accounting skills, your scheduling skills. I mean, I often tell people that, I'm part telemarketer most days. I'm on the phone with people talking to them about why they should hire me to train their puppy for 6 weeks. And I'm emailing back and forth.
What they have to practice and how, we're asking them to do very expensive behavior. Dentists spend a lot of time trying to get people to floss, and that's like a 30-second operation once a day. We're trying to get people to stuff Kong toys and do, 10 minutes of training twice a day and change some of their habits and rearrange their furniture and so on. What we're asking for is pretty expensive, and so we need to really make sure that we are able to get, to pare that down to the realistic, efficient minimum that we can, and so that there's choice making and triage there. And then we've got to get the clients to do it. And boy, that's not easy.
No, it's not. I mean, and with that said, what are the things that someone should know before they embark on a career as a pet dog trainer? Obviously, we want people to become properly educated, but aside from that, what else is needed for this profession?
I think people, and I think this is more the case now than it was, say, 20 years ago, where it was paid lip service, but now people are really getting it. This is both complex. There's a lot of different facets, and it's largely about people. So we do have to become good dog technicians. There's no question. I think that's important. But the degree to which we are working with people is amazing. And the degree to which a lot of dog trainers, at least old school type trainers, burned out. And sometimes they burn out and they leave the profession, which is tragic. But sometimes they burn out and stay in, which is even more tragic, because they're then embittered and not really helping the cause. And it's because they're not fully trained and they have a difficult time with client compliance and people, and burns them out, and they sort of see dogs as victims of their owners and so on and so forth. So I think, people who genuinely like coaching novices, who genuinely don't mind that the client is going to come back with all the prevailing cultural myths again and again and again, day after day, and that you are able to do charm offensives rather than, roll your eyes and become angry at people. I think that is the type of person who is best suited to doing what we do. The rest of the dog training technical stuff we can teach.
Yeah, people skills are needed for sure. I'm really glad I spent a long time in the entertainment business on stage in front of cameras and talking to people and teaching guitar and all that, because it's just energy transference. I'm on stage 7 days a week, in puppy class, and I'm constantly saying, "Oh, wait, don't reach yet. Hold on one sec. All right, grab him now." And giving people guidance like you would be teaching them an instrument. So I often ask people, what do you do? And then from their experience, their chosen profession, etc., then I can help them learn about how to train their dog better. And whether they're a trainer or whether, they might be, a client, and what do you do? And then try to get in through there.
That's a really good teaching tactic, is to hang it on the hooks of what they might already have in their kind of arsenal.
Sure. And most of the best clients I've had have some substantial history in sports or dance or movement of some kind, and I always see it right away. I had a young lady in class once, and her mechanics were just rocking, and I said, "Do you play sports?" And she said, "Yeah." She said, "I'm a gymnast." And I was like, "Oh, okay, that makes sense." And it was almost like, like I said to her, I go, "You really have phenomenal mechanics." So what should someone know before they apply for the Academy for Dog Trainers? What is it they need to know before they come to you and want to go to school there?
I think the thing that most sort of is a rude shock for people is that we're much. I don't know another way to say it. And it's more difficult. It's less of a conveyor belt because we go into more depth. We're really trying to not just kind of impart general knowledge. That there's a fair amount of repetition, there's application, there's more hoops to go through. The standard is very high, and because of all that, and because of the fact that we're going to have these people in our lives, those of us on staff and senior grads and so on, when we're mentoring them and helping them along for a long time, and we want our quality of life, the quality of our discussion platforms to be high, etc. We then need to be necessarily choosy at the front end and more careful about who we admit. And so we have a lower admittance rate. And I think that people are often surprised that they don't get in, and that's and that's just how it is. And then once they are in, they get some shock about how difficult it is. But I think that in order for us to do our due diligence and raise the standard here and actually turn out competent practitioners, I can't honestly see a way of simplifying this. I look all the time at the curriculum and think, what can I carve out and what can I do fewer reps on? And I literally can't compromise. There's not any, if anything, we would like to make it longer, and that may eventually happen. But at the moment, this is how it is.
You're doing fine. Keep it the way it is. Make it hard. Make it difficult.
Yeah. We're like, I often sort of use the analogy of, would you want to, have surgery performed on you by a surgeon who had read some books, engaged in some self-education, attended some seminars and conferences wherein general principles were imparted to this surgeon of, make sure everything is sterile because germs are really bad, staunch bleeding, take out the offending organ, use sharp implements, and then afterwards give them antibiotics. That's not enough, Yeah. And I think there are a lot of general principle trainers out there who think they know what they're doing, but I monitor a fair amount of the dog discussion platforms, and I think there's a competence gap in our profession that is unfortunate and is helping driving clients who want timely, effective intervention. It's driving them to the other side. And then our side ends up just crying foul because we're unable to coach compliance. We don't actually know what we're doing, et cetera. And then we just say, oh, clients are so awful and non-compliant, and they, and they're this is wrong. And then we commiserate with that trainer rather than, sometimes that is the case. But I think oftentimes the problem is that we've got competence issues on our side. I think there's plenty of competence issues on the other side, by the way. But I think we need to, get our own house in order.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that you can always tell how lacking in experience a fellow trainer is by how few questions they ask. So whenever somebody comes to me and says the dog's doing this, that, and the third, I say, okay, well, what about this? I have a litany of questions that I ask people based on what information they're looking to obtain. And if you ask questions about the environment, the history, you can usually tell right away, okay, this person knows what they're doing. They're because they want to know about the environment and the history, and that's really what you need to know about before you get in there. And I'd stay off of as many forums as possible, but when I have peeked in, it's usually like I'll read 3 or 4. I'm like, nobody's asked any of the pertinent questions here yet, so I don't know what they're talking about. So what's the difference? We kind of touched on this a little bit between getting grades and training dogs and getting, coached by you and your staff, and then going out in the real world and training people and preparing. How much are you preparing students for that experience?
That is something which there's no other way to do it that I can see other than support. In other words, as they transition from strictly working sort of within the carefully sort of ordered way that we're developing them and getting out there in the messy real world, the only way to do that I can devise is that we stay with them. That as they transition, start doing cases, that we're there for them. We mentor, we draw it back, we help them. We do what we do for dogs, which is there's plenty of scaffolding, early on, you're prompting and, setting criteria, et cetera. Same thing with clients, same thing with students, as they start taking cases. Initially, they need a fair amount of support, okay? We try to help them work their cases, and then gradually they are able to come up with stuff on their own, and gradually are prompting and so on. It's less and we're just reinforcing, and gradually they fledge and they're more and more independent. I don't know of any other model to replace that with, and so that's what we do.
Nice, and I can attest that when I first graduated from the academy, there was a couple months where I think I might have asked you to weigh in on a few things that I was doing, and you were always very helpful, so that's good to hear.
It's no good to then say, okay, you're done, bye.
Right.
And it's just, you couldn't do that with physicians, and you can't do that with any complex profession.
And that's why I help every dog trainer that contacts me with questions. I help everybody, but if someone's a dog trainer and they have questions and they're a positive trainer, I jump right in and try to help them. So what? Now we touched on this a little bit, but we know this because we've been training dogs a long time, and we know that mechanics and timing, and as Bob Bailey says, the greatest skill of a animal trainer is observation. But why? Why is it so important for dog trainers who are going to go train people's dogs to have great mechanics and timing?
There is a school out there, thought, that is, you can be a really good counselor, et cetera, if you just have a lot of knowledge packed into your head, and you can just sort of, impart that into the client's head, and it'll go into everybody's hands. That's just not true. That's not. And I think the short answer to your question is efficiency. It's not good enough that we know a lot. We've all able to train animals. And is one of our staff members. She has a dog training. She actually recently wrote a blog for us on efficiency, and that a huge part of efficiency is training with a plan, being organized, and then having killer mechanics. And if we can't train, if we can't get the job done quickly, efficiently, etc., it's not all training, herding dogs to do tricks with infinite time on your hands. We've got to get the job done quickly. We're often working with clients who are at wit's end. They are being in danger at any point to go to a force trainer who's going to quickly squash their dog into something that they're going to find more likable. And so I think it is ethically incumbent on us to efficiently, quickly get the job done in a timely manner, because the other side is quite ready to do exactly that. And so competence matters. It's not just enough to have book knowledge. You need to be as competent a trainer as you can be. Plus, you're going to be modeling technique for clients. You don't want to be modeling and in some cases, there are actually fatal flaws and fatal errors. People are very osmotic type of organisms, and they're going to pick up bad habits. And so, I do think that it's not good enough that we have book knowledge. We've got to be able to train.
I agree. And for me, when I can be in the room with someone's dog who's been giving them all these fits, and in the first 20 minutes, a lot of times I hear, this dog's doing everything for you. And I say, yeah, it's because I have really good mechanics and I understand reinforcement. And at the end of this 2 hours, you're going to understand reinforcement, and you have every day to work on your mechanics. And you can do it. And you're already doing it,
It's not good enough to be a savant. It's not good enough to be able to do it and then say, I don't know, I guess I'm just good. If you can't impart it, if you can't draw people's attention to it and model effectively, your knowledge is, unless you're doing exclusively board and train, you have somebody to handle your transfer for you. You've got to be able to impart, and you've got to also make choices. I'm back to triage. Make choices about which part to let slide. I'm agog sometimes at what trainers think that owners need to get mastery of, when it's really something, in my opinion, that should be on the cutting room floor, and what other things are critical, and they seem to not know. And again, it's that competence gap. We've got to become competent practitioners. Otherwise, a lot of the stuff that we're doing, trying to push for, legislation for our side to be, for meaning our side, meaning without use of aversive stimuli, pain trainers, get them off the table. A lot of that's going to be a house of cards if we can't get the job done.
Yeah, I agree. And it's also why I encourage dog trainers to make videos of themselves training things that you're going to then train your clients, because that's great support. I mean, I have an abundance of videos on my YouTube channel, and when I write someone a training plan, there's the link to how to teach a sit. Here's why luring is important. Here's how to do sit and wait at doors. And when dog trainers have said, oh, there's 100 videos like that, I go, yeah, but they're not you. And they're not, and the person who just paid you money can sit in their house and go, oh yeah, look, there's my dog trainer on YouTube training a dog to do a recall. And then they have,
One has to be diplomatic. I mean, it is tough to, but the fact of the matter is there's some not, there's a lot of trainers who think they know what they're doing who don't. And so, I mean, we kind of take the Fifth Amendment in regards to professional courtesy. But boy, oh boy, there definitely is some problems out there.
Well, that's to be expected. It's a difficult thing to train animals. It really is. It's not easy. So now for years, you had Buffy, a chow who was a large or larger dog, and now you have Brian, and he's a small breed dog. So how's life with a small dog?
Oh, it's much simpler. I mean, my whole life is kind of ironic. I'm now, an older lady, and my whole life I've wanted a small dog, and for just a variety of reasons, of life and compromise with partners and so on. And then Buffy was sort of I guess you'd call it sort of an accidental pregnancy. I just happened to, not get my small dog. So finally, I've got my small dog, and he's dynamite. I mean, I really do. I'm enjoying him tremendously. And all the cliches about small dogs that they don't know that they're small, and all that are absolutely true. I mean, I try to remember that he's a dog and not take advantage of his size, but I'm very much enjoying. It's easy to coerce small dogs by picking them up and putting them up and doing stuff with them because of their size. You can do it, and it doesn't feel like you're quote unquote forcing them because you're just picking them up, or you're just putting them over here, or you're just dragging them, whatever. And to remember to be sensitive about that is not always easy.
I have a protocol for my small dog clients called pay for pickups. Just pick them up and pay.
Oh, yeah.
Like, even I say,
pay for pickup.
Even if it's every other time. So even if it's 50%, especially with children, because, a lot of times that 7-year-old just walks over and picks the dog up, and I can tell the dog's like, oh, crap, what are you doing? Lip lick, little shake. And I'm like, okay, give him a payment, give him a little treat. All right. So, I agree 100%. And I've also been selling a lot of small dog clients on the doggy Bjorn, especially if they live in a big city, and they can have the dog underneath their, arm, and they can counter condition from there, which is a lot easier than, a 4-pound dog on the New York streets.
When small dogs are urinating in the house, or when small dogs are growling and biting and being fierce, we laugh it off, and so they often don't get intervention. So if a large dog is aggressing because he's freaked out by something, it's going to be addressed. So his fear is going to be mitigated. But small dogs, because it's perceived by society that the cost is not so great to, the humans in their environment, that it'll get laughed off. And so sometimes little dogs don't get the help they need. So they're equally distressed. But because there isn't a cost to us of that, their problems may not be addressed, and that's something which, concerns me.
Yeah, I agree. I often tell people, the Rottweiler usually, gets a lot of respect.
Right.
And the Yorkie gets picked up and,
And little dogs, they get laughed off, and it shouldn't be. I mean, it shouldn't be a barrier to getting the help they need, because it's equally rotten for them to see things in their immediate environment as threatening as it is for a big dog.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a big soft spot for little dogs. I love Yorkies. Jean, it has been fabulous. Again, just your take on everything dog training is so valuable out here. So glad that you're doing what you're doing. You're going strong. Thanks for being a guest on 8 Limbs. Hopefully we'll have you back again sometime.
I'm delighted to be with you, Drayton. Thanks for having me.
Anytime, Jean. Take care. I will talk to you later.
Bye.
All right, bye-bye.